Hello, I'm Susan Sarandon. In the previous program of Mythos, Joe Campbell told us that the Christ idea and the Buddha idea were equivalent mythological symbols. The gods are projections of powers within us, not somewhere out there. One day, when Joe was on his way to lunch in Midtown Manhattan, he was stopped on the street by a man handing out religious pamphlets. The man asked suddenly, "Do you believe in God?" Stepping back to consider his questioner, Campbell responded, "I don't think you have time for my answer." For Joe, to reduce the idea of God to a question of belief is to miss the point. The single God of Judeo-Christian tradition, or the many gods of Hinduism, are personifications of what he calls transcendent energy consciousness. In this program, Joe uses the spiritual discipline of yoga to explain what this transcendent energy consciousness is. He begins with the popular Hindu story to set the stage.
Now let me tell you a little story. It's a wonderful story, and it comes in one of the Upanishads, the Brahma-Vaivarta Upanishad. Indra, the king of the Vedic pantheon, had just slain a monster serpent called Vritra, the encloser, who had enclosed all the waters of the earth and created a drought. And this drought lasted for many hundreds of years, so that things were in pretty bad shape. When Indra, who apparently thought slowly in those days, suddenly thought, well, why don't I just throw a thunderbolt into this chap and blow him up? So Indra reaches into his thunderbolt box, throws a thunderbolt, boom, that's the end of Vritra, and the waters flow back to the earth. And Indra thinks, oh, what a great boy am I. So he goes up onto the top of the cosmic mountain on which the gods have their palaces, and he sees the palaces in pretty bad disrepair. So he decides he'll go to work and build a palace worthy of his great dignity. So he gets Vishvakarman, the carpenter of the gods, the great craftsman, and he says, now I'd like some lotus ponds over here, and you know, this kind of tower there, and pillows over here, and all kinds of things. A grand affair. And every time he came back to look at how things were going, he had more ideas. Until Vishvakarma thought, my God, I'll never be able to satisfy this chap, and we're both immortal, so this is going to go on a long time. And so in great distress, he went to Brahma. Now, Brahma is the god with 4 faces that sends the light of consciousness out over the world that Vishnu has dreamed. And Brahma sits on the lotus, Padma, the goddess lotus, which is Vishnu's dream. And Vishnu, as I say, is asleep on the cosmic serpent out there on the cosmic waters. So Vishvakarman comes to the shore and he prays to Brahma up there on the lotus and tells him his story. Brahma says, okay, I'll fix this up. So Brahma gets off his lotus and prays to Vishnu and tells Vishnu what's going on here. And Vishnu, asleep, just says like that. So next morning, the porter at the gate of the palace that's being built sees a beautiful blue-black boy, kind of a Krishna type, surrounded by children who are amazed at the beauty of this youth. And the porter runs back to Indra, who's on his throne, and says to Indra, it's auspicious to invite this beautiful boy in, and I suggest you do so. Indra says, all right, show him in. So the boy is invited in, and he comes and stands before Indra's throne. Hospitality is offered in the way of fruits and so forth and so on. And then Indra asks, young man, what brings you here? And with a voice like thunder rolling on the horizon, the boy replies, I've been told that you're building a greater palace than any palace that was ever built by any Indra before you. I've come to give it a once-over, and indeed, this is so. And Indra's sitting there, and he thinks, and he says, Indra's before me, young man. What are you talking about? And the boy says, just consider. Vishnu lies on the serpent. The lotus of a universe rises. On the lotus sits a Brahma. And every time Brahma opens his eyes, a world age comes into being, governed by an Indra. He closes his eyes. He opens his eyes. Another world age. He closes his eyes. This goes on for 360 divine years, eyes opening and closing. And then the lotus dissolves, and it goes back. Another lotus, another Brahma, opening, closing. And then he says, consider the galaxies in the infinitudes of space, each with its lotus, with its Brahma, eyes opening, eyes closing. There may be those in your court who would be willing to count the sands, the grains of sand on the beaches of the world, or the drops of water in the ocean. But who would count those Brahmas, let alone Indras? And as he's talking, a parade of ants is coming across the floor in perfect rank. And when the boy sees them, he laughs. And Indra's whiskers go up and he says, what are you laughing at? The boy says, don't ask unless you want to be hurt. And Indra says, I ask. The boy says, former Indras all. Through many incarnations, they have climbed the scale of virtue. And they have gained the point of becoming an Indra, sitting in the role of Indra. Then they kill Vritra, the serpent. And they think, what a great boy am I. And zoom, they go down to the bottom, they start up again. Well, while he's talking, a crotchety old yogi comes in, wearing a loincloth, carrying an umbrella of banana leaves, and on his chest is a circle of hairs, and all the hairs have gone out of the middle, so it's just a kind of ring. And the boy asks the questions which are in Indra's mind. Who are you? What's your name? Where do you live? Where's your family? Why do you carry that parasol? And what's the meaning of this curious circle of hair on your chest? Well, says the old fellow, Harry's my name. I don't have a house. Life's short. This umbrella is good enough for me. I simply spend my days in the worship of Vishnu's lotus feet. And as for these hairs, curious. Every time an Indra dies, one hair drops out. Half of them are gone. Pretty soon they'll all be gone. Life's short. Why build a house? Well, Indra is pretty smitten by this, and the two of them go out. And he thinks, I'm going to quit this throne. I'm going to quit the whole thing. I'm going out. I'm going to become a yogi. I'm going to worship Vishnu's lotus feet. And he tells his wife this, Indrani. You've seen her picture sitting on the lion, this great gal. And she, oh, this is ridiculous. And so she goes to the priest of the gods and says, now look, he's got this idea in his head. He's going out to be a yogi. And he says, oh, come on, darling, we'll go in and we'll talk to him. So taking Indrani by the hand, the priest goes in, sits down, and he begins to talk to Vishnu, to Indra. And he tells him, there are two aspects. There's the aspect of infinity, and there's the aspect of the revelation of infinity in the forms of the world. And here you are on the throne as the highest manifestation in the social world of this miracle of being. And in knowing your role and what you're doing, you can at the same time be worshiping the feet of Vishnu. Now he says, I've written you a book already on the art of war. This is the art of Shastra, and believe me, makes Machiavelli look like a kindergarten book. And now I'll write one on the art of love, so that in both aspects of your life, as the teacher and ruler of men, and as the lover of your wife, you will be experiencing the rapture of the divine eternal pouring through you. So that's good Indian stuff. There are these many ways, and in the ways of being in the world, or in the ways of leaving the world, there the rapture can show through. Now, who were the two creatures that came into the palace? Of course, the boy was Vishnu, and the old yogi was Shiva. And they came in to instruct this old Vedic god Indra is called the humbling of Indra. Well, his